Hello, everybody, and welcome to 5 Hours of Content Marketing. My name is Casie Gillette. I'm the Senior Director of Digital at Co-Marketing here in Boston. I will be your host today, at least for the first 4 sessions. After that, Andy Crestodina is going to take over. He's going to lead you through the next 4 sessions. Here's the plan for today. We got 5 hours. We got 8 sessions. We have some amazing speakers. We're really packing it in. Here's what you can expect. So first off, we have Jesse McDonald out of IBM talking multi-purpose content that wins. Julia McCoy from Express Writers, she's going to talk to us about pandemic-proof, real-world 2020 advice for content that gets found in Google. We have Lee Oden from Top Rank Marketing. He's going to give us influential content experiences for B2B. We have Andy Crestodina. Not only is he doing hosting, he's also presenting today, so he's doing double duty. And he's going to talk to us about thought leadership and SEO. Really cool context, really cool deck. I've seen it. We have Kevin Phillips. He's going to talk to us about content that converts after you hit publish. We have Sabiba Shakil talking about content in times of crisis. Brian Wallace is going to talk infographics, LinkedIn, and PR. And we're ending the day with Michael Brenner out of the Marketing Insider Group, who's going to talk top-ranking content that brings new clients without a dime spent. On top of these speakers, we have some super awesome panelists, some of my favorite people. We have Melissa Fach, Loren Baker, Sarah Evans, Ashley Segura, Robert Rose, Michelle Robbins, and so many more. Now, 5 hours is a lot of time. You have jobs. We understand that. So don't worry. All sessions are being recorded, and they'll be emailed out after everything's over. So our first session for the day. Oh, and for the hashtag, don't forget to use 5 hours of content marketing. Feel free to introduce yourself in the YouTube live chat, ask questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can. If we don't get to them, feel free to reach out to the panelists, reach out to the speakers. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them. So I want to introduce our first speaker and our panelists. Jesse McDonald is going to be presenting. Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll have Loren and Melissa introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Jesse McDonald. I'm a global SEO strategist with IBM. I've been in SEO for about 6.5 years, worked a lot in local, and then kind of worked my way up into this Fortune 50 enterprise sort of world. So I've been doing that for about a year. So that's kind of me right now.
Great. Melissa?
Hi, I'm Melissa Fach. I'm currently the US blog editor at Semrush or SEMrush, depending on how you say it. I've been in SEO since 2006, 7. I don't know, Loren, no. I've known here a long time.
Yeah.
I've kind of moved around between companies, Semrush, Moz, PubCon, SEJ. I don't know.
Great. Loren?
Hi, Loren Baker. I'm the founder of Search Engine Journal. We've been doing content marketing about the SEO industry and search engines since 2003. So we're just our 17th birthday this week, actually. Old enough to drive, not old enough to do all things. So yeah, really looking forward to today and sharing some experiences and tips as well with the group.
Fantastic. Well, Jesse, why don't you kick us off here?
All right. All right, everyone. So like Casie said, today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about multi-purpose content. And what I mean by that is content that simultaneously can rank very well from an SEO perspective, but also very much has a lot of potential for content marketing. So, social shares, links, things like that. So really getting the most bang for your content buck. So as Casie mentioned, my name is Jesse McDonald, Global SEO Strategist at IBM. I've served as a judge for the US Search Awards since 2018. It's listed on SEJ's 140 SEOs to follow last year. Hopefully we'll do that again. We'll see. Frequent contributor to SEJ, the SEMrush blog, Search Talk Live podcast, conference speaker. And you'll notice in the newest picture, if you've ever seen me speak, about 7 weeks ago, I became a dad to the sweetest little girl in the world. Her name is Joy, and that's her right there in her daddy's little Sith onesie that her uncle Keith Good got her. So yeah, that's kind of been my life for the last 7 weeks. So just a little quick housekeeping before we get going. Disclaimer, the thoughts and opinions I share in this presentation are of my own and don't reflect those of IBM, just something that I have to legally say for my employee contract. So now that that shell is out of the way and not going to hurt us anymore, we can move forward. You'll also notice that this presentation is Mario themed. With the quarantine, I've been playing a lot of Super Mario World, which is like my favorite Mario game ever. Older one, but it's a good one. And while my wife was in labor, Mario Maker was a big one. So I figured keep it topically relevant for the time. So starting out, let's talk a little bit about content for SEO and really how to win in organic search with your content. So let's answer the question, why exactly is good content so important to the success of a site? Sounds kind of like an easy question, but sometimes it can get lost, so it's always good to review anyway. Well-crafted content really drives traffic. That's the goal. And you want to do this and accomplish this through rankings, external links, and through social media engagement. And when I say well-crafted content, basically what I'm saying is removing the fluff. Fluffy content is incredibly inefficient to both users and search engine, and will typically lead to poor rankings. While, in this instance, content would be the game of Mario, and you can still play it, but if it's inefficient, you're not going to get the mushroom, you're not going to power up, you're not going to be able to move through the level more efficiently. So basically, you want to get in, write exactly what you need to, give users what they're looking for, give search engines what they think the query represents, and you will have a much more efficient content piece that will rank better. And one way that I like to start looking at setting this foundation of good content for SEO is really diving deep into competitor research. Your competitors that are doing well and are actually your competitors for terms that make sense for you will give you insights into what is favored by search engines so that you can understand what you need to cover and start researching off of that to make it even better. Because if it's performing well already, it's basically a matter of doing it even better and outperforming so that you end up getting that traffic, you end up getting those links, you get that social engagement. And one of the biggest ways to really improve your content, especially from an SEO perspective, is by making sure that it matches the intent of queries. As search engines evolve and get smarter, they understand different query types a little bit better. So you want to make sure that you are understanding what the user intent behind a certain query is. So, for example, here we have six different Marios. They're all the same character. They're all video games, but they all give different experiences. One at the very beginning is very much the foundation of what a platforming video game is from 1986. The one in the middle expands on that idea, but then starts adding new ideas to it. And then the two on the right are very much a different experience. They're 3D. They have completely different elements and basically take the same idea and turn it on its head. So if I was going into a search looking for Super Mario World, and I even got the one next to it, which is Super Mario 64, equally incredible game, but completely different. I would have a different experience, and that it wouldn't be what I was looking for. So I kind of like to have a maybe research phase 1.5 or something like that, where you're looking at keywords, but you're diving a little bit deeper into the actual search themselves to get a better understanding of the intent of the query. So the first thing that I like to ask myself is, does this search query actually show intent around answering a question? Is it more informative based? Is it trying to show the user something as far as more information that might be indicative of an early journey sort of thing? So when you look at the user funnel, there's the informative phase that then moves closer into the actual purchasing cycle. So this would be more of that top of the funnel type query. So for an example, if we do a Google search for Super Mario World, which is my personal favorite of the Mario series, it's an older game, so it's less likely to be driven by a purchase intent. This one's very much more informative. So at the very top, you see a Wikipedia article, which shows that it's giving you a little bit more information on the game itself, which is why it would have something like a knowledge panel on the side. Informative queries may or may not have a knowledge panel, but in this case, this one does. It has a video carousel, which shows more playthroughs of the game. So you can kind of understand that the intent of this actual query is for people who play the game, might be a little sidetracked or need help for it, and are trying to understand how to actually get through the game more efficiently themselves. There are a few instances of purchasing ability, but that's less around the intent. That just kind of happens to be in there. So really look at, is the SERP delivering how to, what is type queries or results, and that will give you a better idea of what your content needs to be geared towards. Because if you are targeting this keyword in turn Super Mario World, you would want to make sure that you are writing content that matches that intent so that you rank well for what you're going for. And if that's not the kind of content you're trying to write, then that might not be the right query for you, and you need to dive a little bit deeper. The next thing I would ask myself is, does this query show more of a solution or purchase intent? Solution being, I understand what my problem is. Now I just need to figure out what I'm purchasing to actually solve my problem, or even, I already know what I'm trying to purchase, and now it's a matter of just actually executing. So here's another example in the Super Mario world that shows purchase intent. So this is Super Mario Maker 2. It's a newer game in the series. Super cool if you need to check it out. It's on the Switch. But you'll notice if you just type Super Mario Maker 2 into the SERP, the first 3 results right out of the gate give you the ability to actually purchase the game. It has a video carousel again, but the videos match more of, kind of showing trailers of what the game is about to get users more hyped up on actually making their purchase. There's no Wikipedia articles, there's no how-tos. It's very much related to, this is the product, this is how you actually acquire the product. And then, making sure that you match those results will give you a better shot of ranking higher, because you're not fighting against Google. You're not swimming against the current. You're going with whatever their algorithm already understands as the intent of that query. So they know when they see your content, and if you check all the correct boxes, you write everything correctly, and actually answer the right questions, you have a better shot of being in those top positions. So let's talk a little bit about well-rounded content. Well-rounded content is really the act of researching what your content is and making sure that you answer all the appropriate questions and not just little pieces here and there. Because as search engines have evolved, it's less about creating single pieces of content per query or per keyword. It's very much related to, okay, here is an entire piece that answers every possible question around this as appropriate. So one thing that you need to do after you understand the actual intent of your queries that you're targeting is what is semantically relevant, what keywords make sense in the piece itself. Sometimes this will create super long form content, and you can either make multiple pieces that connect to each other through pagination, or you could even separate them out into different ideas, but making sure that they're connected creates a better authority within a certain topic. So for example, when I say that content should include everything that makes sense and is relevant to the piece, if you were to look at Super Mario itself, it's pretty fair to say that any document related to the actual brand would also include content related to, his main objective, which is usually to help save Princess Peach. You would expect to see content around that in the document itself. Who is he himself as the hero of the game using as his sidekicks to help get him to his end goal? His brother Luigi, his friend Yoshi. Those things are kind of to be expected to be included in that content. So you want to make sure that it's in there and that you understand what needs to be in there. If it's, something related to the history of Super Mario, it would more than likely include information about its creator, Shigeru Miyamoto. if it wasn't, then you're really missing an opportunity to expand the overall keyword inventory of the content itself. It's not as efficient. You're not, hitting all of the marks that the content should to make sure that it ranks well. And another, few things to kind of keep in mind as you're creating this content. Make sure that it flows well. Flow is going to be a really huge thing in the next year or so related to content. From things that I've heard through the grapevine, it's my understanding that there will be more emphasis on how a document actually flows together. What do the paragraphs make sense for the topic that it's covering? Did those paragraphs relate to each other and actually relate to the whole of the document? So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that, especially after an algorithm update like BERT. Something like BERT really wants you to take out the marketing fluff, all the unnecessary jargon. It really wants you to hit the nail in the head at the very beginning and make sure that your content makes sense right out of the gate. And without that, then there's no point in ranking you. So one thing that I like to do, and this has been a part of my process for many years, I like to use the topic research tool within Semrush. I'm an Semrush guy. I don't think it's Semrush. So Melissa, you're totally wrong. But yes, so I like to put my topic in and then kind of better understand what that landscape looks like, and then get more of the semantically relevant questions related to the topic itself. So that will give me more of an idea of what I need to cover in my piece. And then if I'm writing it or if I'm working with an SME, making sure that they hit those pieces correctly and that it is an efficient document for the query that we're targeting. So now after we've created our content, one of the big things that we want to make sure we do is get it out in front of people. Rankings are great, but links help with those rankings. They help achieve them and maintain them. And then simultaneously, they help drive more users to the site. So a quality link helps build authority to the content, which is where the ranking improvements come from, and drives users. The drives users is the part that I think a lot of people kind of miss out on. That's something that I always look at when I'm kind of qualifying a link. Is there an opportunity for it to bring users to my site, or is it literally just a link for the sake of a link? And if it's the latter, then more than likely it's not going to be something on my radar. So just as this example shows, you basically want a link to get the user from point A to point B being your site, while building that authority. So it's kind of a win-win sort of situation. And well-written content should naturally earn links from relevant sites. If you've written something that's informative, that resonates with users from another site, it's more likely going to be that someone uses it as a reference point in their content and links back to you. And if not, you can kind of have a conversation about that. But those sorts of things can happen the better content you have. That is an ideal world. Some level of outreach should still be done, especially if you're really trying to make improvements and drive users to your site. So keep that in mind, but you definitely want to make sure that you're staying ethical and doing things the right way. So one thing that I like to do is pull a backlink profile for the site that I'm looking at, someone that's ranking well within the space that I'm targeting, and really kind of see what they're achieving. Sometimes there's not many links at all, which means that if you can get in there and really get some high quality links, you should outperform, as long as your content makes sense and works well for the intent. But this will give you an idea of what other people think is useful about the piece itself. So you can kind of understand, okay, there are a lot of links related to this portion of the document. I really need to make sure that I'm hammering home at that a little bit more, and making sure that that point comes across easily. That way, it's a little bit easier for you to possibly get the links, maybe even get the links that your competitor previously had, something like that. So I always like to kind of take a look at that and get a little bit more information, even in the early research phase. So understanding what your competitors are doing really makes you understand what their content is doing to make it link worthy. And that'll give you a leg up to even improve further upon that idea. And I do like to caution people, remember, spammy links aren't worth it. keep them natural, keep them earned. It's easy to just go out and buy a bunch of links, but that's not good. Search engines do not like that. It's against guidelines, and in the end, it'll just hurt you. It might get you quick results, sure, but they won't last long, and they'll potentially hurt you more in the long run. John Mueller's even gone on and said that if you have a manual penalty, you may clean it up, you may recover from it, but it's still kind of noted, kind of like when you do something bad in middle school and they tell you it's going to be on your permanent record. It's understood that that still happened. So you kind of want to avoid having those negative ticks against your site, or else, you're just going to run the risk of it not performing well in the long run anyway. So there's no point. It may take longer, but it's worth the effort to do it right the first time. Now, here's a tactic that I really enjoy doing. This is something that I've done for pretty much my entire career, and anytime I've taught anyone about link building, this is what I tell them to do. Basically, if you find a site that you want to reach out to, or that you think you might get a link from, throw it into the organic research tool and look at the overall keyword trend. Has it been ranking really well for a long period of time? Are there any significant dips that you might need to be worried about, other than maybe anomalies in data? So for example, towards the end of October, that huge spike is actually an expansion in the SEMrush index. So naturally that's going to go up, but there hasn't necessarily been a huge drop since, maybe a little bit, but that nothing really signaling to me, maybe closer to the beginning of this year, that there's some level of penalty or devaluation from this example itself. Because if a site has some level of penalty or devaluation, it's not going to be efficient and pass that equity off to you that you're really looking for the link. So you kind of want to disassociate with sites that do have these sorts of issues. So getting that kind of firsthand knowledge is always a good idea before you actually get the link itself.
Hey, Jesse, we have some great questions coming in here.
Yeah, sure.
And we only have about 7 minutes left, so I'd like to make sure we're able to get to them. Is there anything, that you want to wrap up with? I mean, I know people will be able to get your presentation, but anything else you want to call out here?
Let's see. So if you're doing any outreach, make sure to do a personalized message for a greater success rate. Automation is good, but it's not going to help you in the end. And just to wrap it up, for social conversations, make sure that your content is easily shareable. As you'll notice, this content that I wrote on the SEMrush blog, it has a share feature that follows you down to the bottom of the site. So make sure that if you do have any social sharing functions, that it is easy to use, easy to read, and scrolls with the user if possible. And when you're writing your content, think of things that might be easily shareable, because some plugins allow you to share actual snippets themselves, kind of like pull quotes, which pull quotes are actually also really good for content. So we were actually pretty close to the end. So think of some relevant groups that you can also maybe share your content in. This can be a little dangerous, but if you're an active social user, this can be a good thing to do. Just don't spam it, because if you do, you will get blocked in the future. There will be no point anyway. So hope this helps and can actually get your kind of brain thinking a little bit, so that you can get the most out of the following presenters. And feel free to hit me up on social, and I would love to continue chatting about this.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was so good.
Thank you.
Some really good questions here. So I was actually thinking of this one as well, but coming in from Yieldify, when thinking of the search intent for a particular keyword, and I know this applies to everybody, here's the $1 million question. How do you make sure that with SERPs consistently changing, that what you've optimized for today is still going to be the case? They said 6 months later, but heck, at this point, a month later. How do you guys all deal with that?
That's definitely tough. I think it really depends on the space you're in, the vertical you're in. Some verticals change faster than others. I know with IBM, it's pretty consistent with what we're working on. So we kind of have a good idea of what the intent is. But I would say just research your vertical, see if it's changing, if Google Trends shows big changes in it, because that can give you some insights on maybe you need to check on it 6 months down the road and pivot a little bit.
One thing,
Melissa or Loren, do you guys have any thoughts here?
Yeah, one thing I've noticed in the world of especially e-commerce is that specific search queries or topic clusters can switch intent seasonally, like getting in the holiday, and then maybe as there's different events that happen, like in the real world, which then affect user behavior, right? So maybe there's like news around a product or a product line or something like that. One thing that that's really helped me is that when I work with e-com clients is making sure that we have enough rich content on those transactional product landing pages to answer those questions, which may start occurring from an informational query style standpoint, and be able to add to those almost instantly when we see that flip. And one thing that I've definitely noticed is that you typically don't see Google switching from one intent to the next intent like over the course of a day, right? You tend to see different publications bubble up. Maybe something that used to all be e-commerce sites, you start to see magazine sites bubble up to the top. That's typically a warning sign that what used to be considered transactional, what used to be considered informational, is about to make that switch. So you want to adjust accordingly when you start to see that. So just like keeping track of your competitive set for those keyword topics, and when you see new competitors enter or traditional competitors drop, can be a way to foreshadow that event happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't happen overnight. Melissa, I'm going to send this one over to you. So Topher has asked, how will Google decide if content flows? That seems problematic to me. And I know you have some thoughts there. Oh, you're muted. You're muted still.
Sorry, Gary's keynote at PubCon Austin, he discussed flow specifically. And I, with Jesse, chased him down in the hall and said, clarify. And this is what he basically said to us was, it's no different than basic writing skills. You have your title, you have your first intro sentence, the next sentence should follow the flow through the paragraph. Every sentence should add on to the next, and it should be a common sense flow to your paragraph, right? The problem will be when you're throwing random things in there that break up the flow, that the search engines can't understand. Like Jesse mentioned to Bert, they can't understand where the flow is going. If you lose the reader, you lose the search engine. So what he was saying essentially was, we need to be writing better, okay? And we're trying to avoid some of the AI written content that just kind of slaps things together. Google's gonna be able to determine if that is what the case was, the content. So it's gonna come down to basic content writing skills and becoming a better writer if we want to rank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. Right. I mean, it's right to humans, right? Like we need to read what makes sense. One more here. There's actually a couple questions around this, around localization and understanding the intent by localization. So, how do you deal with that? Let's say I'm an SEO and I live in Boston, but my client's entire base is in Texas, right? Like, how would you go about dealing with that? And Jesse, I'll turn that back to you unless Loren or Melissa want to jump in here.
So what I've always done and what my team has always done that I've worked with in the past is really research the area itself. Obviously, it's not feasible necessarily to fly out to the area and get an understanding of it. But if your client can give you some ideas on, this is what the area looks like. So for example, I used to work with a foundation repair company that was global or national, up north. You can write about how a cellar would actually, or a basement would actually impact your foundation, whereas in Texas, that's not a thing. So my Texas team actually had to talk to them about, okay, what does that actually look like? How does it impact them, and get their insights, so then we could write that content a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, guys, this is just not enough time. You're all so fantastic, and I know that you all have so much more information. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? Because I know there's more. Melissa, why don't you start?
I'm at SEO Aware on Twitter. You can ask me anything. I'm there all day.
I am at Jesse SEO Geek on literally every social platform, so hit me up.
And I'm at Loren Baker on every social platform as well, because there's not too many other Loren Bakers. And then also on Search Engine Journal, you can find me there as well.
Well, thank you all. It's so wonderful to see you all. I wish I could see you in person, but this will have to do. Thank you all so much. For our viewers, we have some more fantastic sessions coming up. Next up, we have Julia McCoy. I know that we have people who will be new to the show. You know, maybe you're joining in for Julia's 30-minute session. So I want to say welcome, everybody. You know, please feel free to let us know where you're from in the chat. I'm seeing people from all over Rwanda, Scotland, Portugal, all over the US. You know, so many people. This is amazing. We have some great speakers.